presentation. And we called it a listening session because we really feel like we have a unique opportunity. The way that you start to build bridges is by stopping and really taking time to listen and hear what people are saying, and then start to figure out how can we respond to build stronger communities, better relationships. So this group kind of came out of a conversation with one of our students, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that when I introduce them here in just a second. I also wanted to call your attention, there are a couple more really great diversity-based learning opportunities that are coming up right away. This week is like a serious hard-hitting week at Shepherd. If anybody ever said we don't tackle issues, we are tackling issues. So we have this program this evening. Tomorrow we have a fantastic common reading program that looks just awesome. I can't wait for that one tomorrow. Lifelong learning program tomorrow. And it's really based, again, on the same sort of theme that they keep running through, and I think it's awesome that we're all sort of focusing our energies. So if you want to take a look, we also have a flyer for a program that's coming up on Thursday. International Sites of Conscience Coalition is going to be on campus. That's a wonderful, unique opportunity to check out this fantastic agency. And then they're doing a 4-hour training for us. It is free and open to the community. We have some great partners, the Common Reading, the Foundation, the Student Center, also, of course, the Bird Center. And we have a wonderful community supporter in Dick Anson and Ezekiel's Place for Justice and Peace. They do great work as well. This is an issue they're very much committed to. So they've made this possible. If you are interested, we have a very few spots left for that workshop. It is a truth and reconciliation dialogue training, and we're going to focus on police and racial profiling as part of the conversation. So you are more than invited. If you'd like to sign up, there's a sheet outside. Jay has it back there at the back. And then in October, we have a follow-up really great program that's a collaboration that will be held here again at the Bird Center. And so pick up this flyer. This is on a dialogue on race relations about moving forward. And it's going to be a fantastic panel, including people like our own Jefferson County Sheriff, terrific representatives, people from all aspects of the community. And so I think it's going to be a great opportunity to have dialogues with one another and kind of put into practice what we're learning this week. So please pick one of those up and spread the word. We'd love to have you. Now, without further ado, this kind of came out of a conversation with some of our students. I want to introduce Naeem Mohammed. Naeem, raise your hand. This is Naeem. Naeem is the president of our Black Student Union on campus. He's also the captain of our Shepherd basketball team. He's very well known in our campus community. And we had been having some conversations after some of the violence in June, and then the subsequent violence between police and protesters. And we said we need to do something to talk about. What is this doing in our communities, and how do we start to figure out where we are? What's the lay of the land, and what's the experience of students of color here on campus, as well as of our staff and our faculty? So that's how this all was kind of born. So a thank you to Naeem for being willing to sort of tackle it, take it on. We also have Tiana Davis. Tiana is another fantastic one of our students. She does, I think, 12 things on campus. She's in like 14 student organizations. She is involved in a sorority on campus. She is in multiple clubs and organizations, and she's just a go-getter. She's wonderful. So we have a really cool perspective from her. We have Deshaun Long, who's sitting beside them. Deshaun's on our Student Government Association Executive Board. He also is a member of Greek Life here on campus. He's a member of a fraternity. He's also involved with Black Student Union as well. So we have some really great student representatives. Then we have another fabulous student, but at a different level. This is LaShawn Tolson, sitting right down here, who's in our graduate program and is studying in a CSDA program, which is the College Student Development and Higher Education Administration program. So that is one of our kind of gems of Shepherd University. And that will be kind of a perspective from a graduate student level. And then we have two fantastic staff members also serving on our panel. We have Evora Baker. Evora is from our TRIO program, which is a fantastic student support program here working with student success and particularly first generation students in our region. And then we have on the end our Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Tom Seeger. Dr. Seeger is kind of, he's kind of a rock star on campus, so you sort of know him. Everybody knows him. He talks to every orientation group, all the students know him. He's terrifically accessible. He's a great advocate as well. And he does tons of trainings, not just for us, but he does trainings. He's called upon to be a trainer across the country in issues about diversity and inclusion and building inclusive communities. So we have a kind of all-star panel in front of you. They're all excellent at what they do. Finally, we have an all-star facilitator. Behind me is Dr. Richard Stevens. Richie is the actual graduate coordinator of our CSDA program. He's a faculty member in the psychology department, and he also teaches about these issues. He teaches our diversity and multiculturalism class for the CSDA program, and he's a wonderful facilitator, and we're really grateful because he helped develop questions for this panel tonight. And finally, two last thanks. I'd like to give a thank you to Amelia Cart. Amelia doesn't like to be called out. Mia, do you want to stand up for a minute? Mia and Rose Tribby. These are two of our fantastic graduate assistants. They are both responsible for helping organize this panel as well and help sort of get all the pieces and parts together. So thank you for your work as well. And then finally, without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Dr. Stevens. Thank you all for being here.
So for some of you who came in late, there are a few seats around. If you don't want to stand for the next hour, feel free to grab those seats. They're up front. You know how it works. Good evening, everyone, and I'm honored to be a part of this, to be the moderator here. A couple of things that I wanted to say before we get started is that these individuals are going to share their experiences, and theirs only. And one of the things that when we have panel discussions like this, there may be times that the particular panelist may want to opt out because of his or her own experience, and we need to be respectful of that. And as these individuals share with us, we need to recognize that they are speaking from their own perspectives and do not represent any larger body. And I think this is what Rachel talked about earlier, is when we listen to the individual is really the important piece of understanding a particular phenomena from that individual's point of view. And if we can do that as teachers, as educators, and understanding who our students are and how we work with our staff, we're going to be better professionals in whatever role we do, because we're not about to say, well, this particular dimension of identity is one that now I'm grouping everybody together. And so if we can take that in our daily lives and our professional lives to say, I'm going to listen to the individual versus making assumptions about what I think their experience might be because of how they look or how they act, we will be better off as a college, university, and society. And so for the rest of the time here, I'm just going to be posing questions. And again, I don't feel like we need to go down the line. So if you feel like you want to jump in, just be respectful of the people you're sitting next to and respond. So the first question is, Rachel introduced you, and she highlighted some of the pieces. But I'd like each of you to introduce yourself to the audience and talk about how you identify in terms of race.
Well, my name is Deshaun Long. I'm a junior here at Shepherd. I'm a nursing major. I identify as a black man.
I'm Naeem Mohammed, and I identify also as a black man.
I'm Tiana Davis, and I identify as a black woman or African American woman.
I'm Laura Baker with the TRIO Student Support Services Program, and I identify as the African American female.
I'm LaShawn Tosin, and I'm the Hall Director at Thacker Hall, and I identify as being a black person.
I'm Tom Seeger. I make a distinction between race and ethnicity. So identify black by race, knowing that's socially constructed. So I wasn't born saying, hey, I'm black. Someone told me that. But by ethnicity, I identify as African American, knowing that my own lived experiences and that of my ancestors is only connected, only I know about the U.S. So know that at some point my ancestors didn't originate here, but the only experience I know is being in this country, so therefore,
I found myself paying for ACTs and SATs and applying to several different colleges. So my reason for going to school is because my dad had expectations of me, and those same expectations became my own, and I realized the importance of education. It's not about outside, but within your mind, your characters. I chose Shepherd because it was ideal as far as distance from Martinsburg, only 15-minute drive. It's not too large of a university, so I can get that one-on-one help that I need personally, and I can build a relationship with my professor. Classroom settings, 20 to 25 on average. So location, student body size, administration, that all play a part in why I chose Shepherd.
I grew up in Freemanville, West Virginia, about 20 minutes down the road. So I'm local. I went to Shepherdstown Middle School. So pretty much about the same as it is here, diversity-wise. The influence I had tied about going to college, for me, it was never really an option. My mom went to college, has a master's degree. She's an educator herself. She taught me to read at home when I was 3, so it was just like education was like always a thing. Like I didn't have an option. I was going to go. And my dad did not go to college, but he always stressed to me the importance of education. He took classes and always encouraged me, like, you have to work hard in school. Like, this is how you're going to go places. And I chose Shepherd University because it is close. I would save money. I had the Promise Scholarship, and my dad also encouraged me to stay close. He worked at Shepherd University for some time, and he was one of the main people that encouraged me to go here instead of going somewhere far away.
Most of, let me start by where I grew up. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I came from a family where I was the first person in my family to go to college, like most of the TRIO students that I work with. And for me, college was so far-fetched. I had no idea. However, I was kind of tracked. I was in AP classes. I had a mentor when I was in high school who worked at this university in St. Paul, Minnesota, and she talked to me about going there. They paid for me to go for a visit, and lo and behold, I really enjoyed my visit there and wound up being at one of the best universities, other than Shepherd, for my undergraduate education. A very small, private liberal arts college, and a lot of who I am today, I think, was shaped on that university setting.
Was that McAllister?
It was McAllister. Yes, sir. Go Scots.
All right, I grew up in Southeast DC, which was, at the time, it was one of the roughest neighborhoods in DC at the time. Yeah, not a lot of diversity. The only white person that lived in my neighborhood was my sister's mom, so she was in the house with us. So a lot of violence, a lot of, you know, things like that. And there wasn't really, like, all I know is after my sister passed away, I just didn't want to live where I lived anymore. I just wanted to, like, leave the city. And that's pretty much what influenced me to, like, get away and go to college. I started at Hagerstown Community College, went there for 2 years, and then my dad was like, hey, you should go to Shepherd. So Shepherd was pretty much picked for me. So I came to Shepherd, and then I left Shepherd, and then I came back to Shepherd, and now I'm here. But education was always something that my parents stressed, because neither of them went to college. It was like 13 kids. 8 of us have went to college, but only 2 of us have finished with a bachelor's. And then I will be the second to get a master's once I complete the program. So, that's what I got.
So I grew up outside of Baltimore, and I'm the youngest of 7 children with a 20-year span of time between my oldest brother and myself. And the idea of going to college just wasn't something I grew up thinking about. And even though I was born in Baltimore, grew up outside of Baltimore in a neighborhood that we lived in, it's very rural. And it was an all-black neighborhood. But within that neighborhood, they were all related except for us. We were the only people who weren't part of the related family, everyone who was somehow connected, or felt connected. And now we've been living there for 40 years. The irony is I was never encouraged to go to college until I got into high school. And to juxtapose my environment where I grew up, which was all black, but I went to a private school for 10 years that was all white. I had on one hand just us and people left over for a number of black people of any color, really, that were in that private school in the 10 years I went there. So even in that environment, going to college wasn't so interesting, but it wasn't until my junior year that I did a campus visit and decided, yeah, I want to go to college, which I did the one thing you should never do. I only applied to like 2 schools. I'm doing fine, good. I'll say more about that when we get to the next question.
So some of you talked about what institution you chose to attend, and since you're Shepherd students in many cases, we know that you decided to come here. But when you chose this, did racial issues impact your decision? Was that something you looked at when you were considering admissions to Shepherd or whatever undergraduate institution you chose?
For me, at least initially, I wanted to go to HBCU. I was set on going to some type of HBCU. My mom was an HBCU product, and that's where I wanted to be at. That's where I thought I would feel most comfortable at. But as I got into basketball, my career started going. They didn't recruit me. And Shepherd did, so that's why I came to Shepherd. It was almost free, wasn't too far from home, and at the time I wasn't really focused on racial issues. Just being an athlete, you just, especially a young, ignorant-minded athlete, you just think that you want to the NBA, and I sometimes still do, but. I wouldn't say racial issues affected my decision, but I would say that I was definitely conscious of who was going to be in my locker room, how my coach felt about certain topics, and I was conscious that I had 4 familiar faces on campus that were from my area who had similar upbringings as me, so I knew at least there would be somebody there that I could relate to. But overall, just being an athlete, at the time I was just all basketball, so racial issues just kind of don't go with sports all the time.
With me, race didn't come into mind when deciding to come to Shepherd. I know I was trying to stay in state because of tuition. And I knew whatever school I went to was going to be PWI because of my geographical location or living in West Virginia. But race didn't come to mind. I've always been conscious. But that didn't play a factor in choosing to come to Shepherd.
I feel similar to them also. Race really wasn't a factor in my decision of going here. Like I said, I grew up here. I knew what the area was like. I knew for the most part what the people were like. I sometimes wonder what would have been like if I went to an HBCU. That's something that I kind of struggled with picking a college, but we just felt that this is the best option, just money-wise.
Real quick before someone else speaks, we sometimes use language that we might not be familiar with. HBCU is historically black college or university, and PWI is predominantly white institution. So,
For me, I think race was an issue, simply because I chose to go to Minnesota for undergraduate school. And everybody's like, "Whoa, why are you going to Minnesota? There are no black people in Minnesota." There's Prince. So I knew there you know. Well, the same thing happened when I decided to come to West Virginia to work for the TRIO program. I worked for a TRIO program in Minnesota, and people are like, why are you going to West Virginia? There are no black people in West Virginia. Okay, well, they'll have one. It was, I would say it was a factor only because I came from a very very large family. I have 8 siblings, and we had very little means. And as I stated before, I was the first person in my family to attend college. So for me, there was no way to look past whether or not I was going to be safe where I was attending college. My mom worried about it. She called me at that time. We didn't have cell phones. I'm telling the age here. We didn't have cell phones, and so it cost her to call me every week while I was away at school, and she didn't know what was going on with me. In a lot of ways, I was very fortunate. I went to a small liberal arts school. I think I started out, my class was one of the largest African American classes recruited at Macalester. And of about 20 of us who were recruited at a school of about 1,000 students, I think when I graduated, there were about 3 of us remaining that graduated. So.
For me, race did play an issue, like it played a role in my decision, mainly because I didn't want to move to Hagerstown. My dad kind of made me. I had plans on going to like Louisiana, like getting as far away from DC as I possibly could get, but my parents wasn't having it, so I ended up in Hagerstown for 2 years, and in the class, it was, it was majority like Latinos, Latinas, people identified as African, Jamaican, African American. White people were the minority. So even ended up at Shepherd, like I'm walking around campus and I was seeing black people, but I wasn't seeing them. Like I get in class, and again, I'm the only black person. I'm like, I know there's more black people on campus. Like, what class is this? They weren't taking classes with me, so I was, it had an impact on my decision, because I really didn't know like what I was getting into. Is like, oh, like West Virginia, and I'm like, what? And in my opinion, it's still too close to DC. So, but that's how it impacted my decision to come to Shepherd. It was just one interesting trip from moving from Hagerstown to Shepherdstown, and I grew to love it.
As I mentioned earlier that I went to a private white school the first 10 years of my education, and then I realized in 8th grade that I can't continue this, even though I wasn't deeply aware of race. I had not been exposed to racial development theory yet. CFT students, take note. But I knew it just didn't feel right, and so I was fortunate to be able to go to public high school, where instead of having the white majority, 65% were students of color. And then I'm like, where have y'all been? Because that's where I felt a sense of connection. So when it was time to go to college, again, college wasn't something I was just told was going to happen. But I was quite practical about it, and so I had the opportunity to apply for a scholarship to the University of Maryland to be an electrical engineer. And there were 2 of us from my school who were semi-finalists, and one of the 2 of us got the scholarship. It was me, and it was the University of Maryland. And I only applied to 2 schools. I applied to Maryland because of the scholarship, and I applied to Virginia Tech, and the application fee was waived, and there was no essay. So, come on now, no essay. Going to Blacksburg for me would have been like telling me I'm going to the moon. Because Blacksburg, from where I grew up, was 4 hours away. And in my mind, so was the moon, and they were equally distant. University of Maryland was 20 minutes down the road. And to my family, that seemed like another country. The idea of going 20 minutes away, and I remember wanting to live on campus. I'd also mention I went through a program not too different from the Gateway Academy, but I went through between my sophomore and junior year in high school. And ironically, the program was hosted at Morgan State University, even though the program was not run by Morgan State. Actually, it was probably run by Morgan State. So it was the grant-funded program for minority students looking to go into science and engineering. And that's when I got in my mind that, you know what, maybe this whole college thing could work. I knew at the time I had no desire to go to Morgan State, but I knew I wanted to go to college at that point. And again, I didn't have any role models to explain what college was about. I just knew that I wanted to go. And I was fortunate that in the 9th grade, when I went to the public high school, I had a guidance counselor, a black woman, who looked at my schedule I'd been given and said, no, you are gifted and talented. I'm putting you in the college track. And of course, this time, like, I didn't know there were different tracks. I thought it was just one track, one train going the same direction. I didn't know there were different tracks going. And funny thing is, in the same school where the majority of the students were students of color, in my classes, I was usually one of two. Usually one of two. And the other one is now an Air Force colonel, went to West Point, doing quite well. But we always lamented, like, why is it just the two of us in our classes? Same thing happened in college. I'll hold off on the college piece. But for me, race played somewhat of a role, but also just being practical. I was fortunate to go to Maryland on a scholarship until I decided at the end of my junior year that I didn't want to be an electrical engineer. I decided I wanted to go into student affairs and realized a degree in electrical engineering probably wouldn't match so well with wanting to go into student affairs. But for me, it was both a matter of wanting to be around people who look like me, but also wanting to go to college and knowing that I didn't want to be a burden to my family to pay for it. Again, when you only apply for 2 schools and you only really can go to one, everything kind of lines up for me to go to the University of Maryland.
Thank you. So the next question is, what's your experience been like being a person of color at Shepherd University? And how has it been different or similar to other places such as DC or just going out on the weekends or your hometown to understand those experiences?
I would say my experience as a person of color at Shepherd, it's been very different. It's somewhat of a roller coaster. As I mentioned earlier, I came in just a kid thinking that everybody was like people from back home, which is a very diverse, we all get along community. And I remember the first time I became racially conscious really was when my sophomore year, when all this stuff started happening with the shootings and stuff. And I heard some comments about it that really just like got me shaken. I remember I called my mom, and I was crying on the phone. It was like the first time I was really like shocked to hear a viewpoint that was so far left in mine. And that's when like I really started to get into, being racially conscious. And like it came to the point now I have a whole separate Twitter account just to read about what's going on in America. And it's definitely different than back home. It's like I said, back home we all agree on a lot of stuff. But here, I find myself hearing some viewpoints that are very different than mine. And it has caused me to really pick and choose my battles when it comes to conversations. So a lot of times I want to speak up and I want to, just educate somebody on what's really going on. But then I think like, am I going to offend them? They already offended me probably. Is it really worth it? Am I really going to get through their head? So, I really had to pick and choose my battles when it came to racial comments and slurs and stuff of that nature. And then it's even like sometimes when I go off campus, especially on the weekends, when there's alcohol involved, it really gets, real tempting. Not giving the benefit of the doubt, you maybe been drinking, alcohol is probably not the best time to have this conversation. But then I think to myself, like, when is the next time I'm going to see this person? And are we really going to talk about it when we're sober? But, and like, even dealing with stereotypes, you know, it's no secret that African American athletes have a stereotype about them. And I always feel that I'm trying to break them, you know, from the way I dress day to day, the way I talk. You know, I sit in the front of all my classes, and I always hear this comment like, "I am different." And I just like, what does that mean? Like, I'm different, you know? Because like I'm in the front of the class, or because I speak with proper grammar, or because I wear Sperry's? Like what? Really? How does that? But it's definitely been different, and it's definitely impacted me. I think for the better. You know, I'm a way better, more educated person than I was when I came to college, and I thank somewhat those ignorant comments for that, because that caused me to not speak on something right away. That led to me, all right, before I speak on this, let me go do my research and read on the history of what's going on, or read an article, or, you know, let me take time to just understand this viewpoint. You know, we all come from different places, and I think learning to understand, you know, even though I might not accept their views, but learning to understand and just taking the time to have the conversation has definitely been one of the major keys of my experiences at Shepherd as a person of color.
Like I say, before coming to Shepherd, I've always been racially conscious. My father spoke to me about it, my uncle, my mother, always telling me I have to be more careful with the things I do. I may have to excel in order to be seen as equal. I'm going to be dealing with stereotypes that weren't, you know, generated by my own actions, but placed on me because of who I am. So just be careful, be vigilant, be conscious. So that I came to Shepherd with that mindset. It wasn't a surprise when I got here as far as, you know, the diversity. And when I say diversity, I don't mean, you know, reaching quotas, but true diversity. And I just came here and carried myself the same way I did before I got here, being one step ahead. Feeling that it was necessary because who I am, not because it's the right thing to do, but I had to take extra precaution. But since being here, I've had a great experience overall. Year after year, I see Shepherd progressing as far as diversity and making it more inclusive for the people here. I haven't dealt with any racial discrimination. You know, you have your stereotypical comments, questions here and there, but you know, you'll face that pretty much anywhere you go. But it's been a great experience. I do see room for improvement, and we're headed in that direction. With me being involved with these different orgs, I find myself being the only black person in that org. For SJ, for example, being on the board, or for being in my chapter. I do see where being culturally rounded is still an area that needs growth, that needs improvement, but we're headed in that direction. So I've had a great experience so far here.
Most of my experiences at Shepherd University have really been great. I have always felt welcome here. I've never felt that I've been discriminated against in any way. I honestly think my experiences before coming to Shepherd were worse than when I came here. I was racially conscious at a very young age just because my family is so diverse and we're seeing it's different. Because at first I really didn't get it because, like I said, my grandparents were white and know each other and things of that nature. And so growing up, I did have, like, my parents talk to me about things like that and such. And then like I said, coming here has been a really great experience. Something my mom, I remember, I'm in a few different organizations. They've all been positive. I'm on the cheer team. I'm also vice president of my sorority. And because I grew up here, like I said, I'm from here, I've grown up being used to being the only black person in the room, and a lot of times the only black female in the room. So to me, it wasn't any different than what I was used to. And then when I decided that I wanted to give this Greek life thing a try, my mom made a joke, but it also made me think. She said, Tiana, like, do you think they're gonna let you in? Like, you're black. Are there any black people in Greek life? And there are a few of us, but it's just things like that that really made me think. And honestly, since the whole Black Student Union thing came about on Shepherd University's campus, is when I really started to have a semi-negative experience. And I was so painfully aware that there still is a lot of ignorance on this campus. I got comments such as, Tiana, don't join the Black Student Union. Like, why would you do that? Like, that's a racist organization. Things such as, things along the lines of, there's not a white student union. And then I just was kind of shocked all over again, like I was in the 6th grade, like, what is happening? And then compared to other places that I've been, like DC and things like that, I haven't been to many places, but the more places I go and the more people I talk to, especially people that aren't from here, my eyes were opened because they'll say things like, where are all the black people? And I'm like, they're here. I've lived here my whole life. Like, what are you talking about? And my eyes have just really been open to the lack of diversity and just the lack of education there is around these issues. But mostly it has been a positive experience here.
For me, as an instructor here at Shepherd, it amazes me, it still amazes me today. Sometimes when I read something that a student has written that is so insensitive, especially when it comes to color. You know, there are other women on this campus. There are not very many black women on this campus. And coming from that perspective, sometimes it's difficult for me to read some of the stuff that my students write or that they say in class. I've got this one, since we're reading Just Mercy, I decided to show this video about the former mayor of New York talking about the black experience and how the whole Black Lives Matter slogan is racist, and how black parents should teach their children to respect authority and respect the law. And I had my students comment about it. And for me, I think education is key in everything. So in order for people to understand race, this whole fallacy of race, we have to talk about it. So when I showed the video, one of my students made a comment. Now I have not addressed the comment that was made yet, but we will. I just want to approach it in a very sensitive way, because I think sometimes some of the best ways to educate people is to teach them, but you have to teach them from their perspective. So what am I going to identify with? What is this student going to identify with? And so I'll be tackling that very soon. But I think just having this forum and having all of the people who decided to come and listen to what we have to say is a step toward in the right direction.
My experiences as a person of color at Shepherd has been very interesting. And I only say that because I've been aware that I've been black or different my entire life, because I'm the darkest one of my father's kids. So I've got teased a lot growing up. It happens. But it's cool because it prepared me for other things. Like when I first got to Shepherd, I had a professor see me after class on one of my papers, so I'm like, oh, like what did I do? Like I thought I was in trouble or something. So, and she asked me if I went through the writing, I guess the 100 level classes here, and I was like, no, I transferred. She's like, well, where did you go before here? And I was like, I went to HCC. And she was like, oh, well, where did you go to high school? And I was like, I went to high school in PG County. And then she looked at me and was like, oh, well, you just write so well. And I was like even when I say it out loud, I'm just like, what? I didn't know, like, I honestly didn't know, and this was 6 years ago. I didn't know how to feel, you know, I was just like, is that, like, thank you? Like, I didn't, like, what do you say? Like, I'm, you know, I'm still at a loss for words right now, like, at this, at this very moment. Like, what is that even? And the same professor, God bless her heart. I went on a field trip with her, and I had some friends who were on the bus before I got on, and they said that she got on the little microphone that was on the bus and was like, oh, like, and we also have a lovely African American Negro student joining us for the field trip today. Her name is LaShawn Tosin. She's just an excellent writer. And and I get on the bus and everybody's looking at me like mortified. And I'm like, what's wrong? And then they tell me later, and I was just like, God bless her heart. So it's been very interesting because I've also heard comments that because I was very involved undergrad, especially when I came back to Shepherd. My dad even said to me, because I came back to Shepherd and then I became an RA again, and he was like, oh, you must be the luckiest black girl in West Virginia right now. And I was just like, what? Like, it's, get questioned, you know, and things like, a lot of the times people don't tell me no because I'm black, or I've only gotten certain things because I'm black, or I got a job because I was black. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I got this job because I meet the qualifications. Like, so it's been very interesting because I've also, but I've also had professors like the two sitting in the audience, Dr. LZ and Dr. Messenger, who've been great. Pretty much telling me like there's nothing that I can't do, and I think that's that relates back to like where I'm growing up, because pretty much the only people that really told me that were my parents. Like, you know, they tell you, you know, black is beautiful, like you can, you know, but your parents tell you that, so you like, oh yeah, thanks mom, thanks dad, but it means something different when it comes from somebody who've only known you for like 15 weeks, or who've only known you because you've had a class with them, a class or two with them. And it was the same for teachers, like growing up. Like, I went to a private school from the time I was 3rd to 8th grade, and the teachers there, like, they made sure that, I mean, we were some hoodlums, but they made
sure everybody not watching Family Feud. So it's true, I do. I'm pretty good at it too. Many of you who work here know that we have this assembly twice a year, and we always have a half-hour reception before the assembly. Everyone usually arrives 50 minutes before we have to go into the EOB auditorium. And it's always interesting how I naturally will gravitate to the very small number of people who both attend this assembly and who look like me. And we all, now I'm really bearing off, so I feel comfortable. Even if you don't. We naturally gather together, because it's not like a conspiracy, we're not planning anything, it's not like we're trying to strategize on taking over. So, only 5 of us. And you know what I'm talking about, for those of you good, you know what I'm talking about. But we don't see each other, we're in different buildings, we're like, oh hey, what's going on, we catch up. And sometimes we kind of cover some business that we got to cover without having to email each other a dozen times. And then one of us says, hey, we probably should break up because they're wondering why we're all together. And we laugh at that, but there is something I've always felt isolated in all my professional experiences. But I've also worked in institutions that were all PWI, generally in areas that weren't that diverse. And I don't know whether I've been called to do this, if that's sort of my course in life, but I've always felt that our presence matters for the students who see us here. It matters for all of you who are students, particularly it matters for students who look like us and feel some sense of affirmation that we are here. So in days I'm like, once again, I'm going to, I'm only black money. Now I will say at this point, it's pretty amazing to me to look around the table that I sit around every Tuesday morning, and there is a degree of diversity that was not present when I first got to sit around that table. And so that's affirming. It's affirming to see that at least we have events like this, that we recognize the challenges. But when I look at my experiences, there it is. Once again, I'm going to this event where I get to eat fancy free food. But where are the people who look like me? Where are the people who share my background, when I interact with donors? So that is part of the experience, but it's buoyed by the positive connection I do have. It's buoyed by the people who do get it. But that doesn't mean it's always easy. It doesn't mean it's like, it doesn't mean that I don't still face the same thing I was facing 40 plus years ago. I don't look that old, I know. 40 plus years ago in grade school when I was the only one. So the theme of being the only one has just been the theme of my life. And I think somehow there's a divine reason why I was the only one at that point where it was really difficult to where I've learned to live as the only one. And I'm thankful for those who I can connect with and vent about, you know what happened to me today? Someone just said something. And most times it's not because people are being evil. We have like that many evil people around. I mean, we have evil folks who are just lurking in the shadows waiting to cause havoc. I think out of a place of innocence, people say things and they're like, yeah, I kind of wish I hadn't said that.
Thanks. So we know race is one aspect of your identity. How have other aspects of your identity, such as sex, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, etc., how have they been impacted by your race and vice versa?
One other thing about me, you know, that my mother really worried about was when I decided to grow dreads. You know, it's just a bad stereotype about them. And my whole life, all my brothers got dreads. They have like 20 years, but she just wouldn't let me because I'm like the golden child in the family. No, Naeem, like, you're going to have a short haircut. I'm not letting you do this. And, you know, I always like, why? She's like, look. And I was like, I mean, yeah, I see some of my peers with dreads, but I'm like, man, why can't I be different? You know, that's always been my attitude about certain things. And I definitely think my hair sometimes make people judge me to be a certain way, you know. And I love when I break through those doors and they realize, all right, I mean, he just got dreads. He's not what I see in some rap video or music videos, you know, like, I'm different, and that's fine. But other than my hair, definitely my last name, you know, the name Naeem Muhammad, you know, you would think I was somebody else probably originally. And my whole life, it's definitely affected me. You know, growing up, it was to the point, especially after 9/11, like, it was real bad. And I asked my mom so many times to change my last name, you know, because I have a different last name than her, but I asked her all the time, like why? Like, I'm tired of getting picked on at school. I'm tired of kids making, you know, especially this time of year when 9/11 came around, like, it was just always kind of so awkward. People would bring up, you know, the terrorist attacks. Even when I look on the news and they have the same name as me, you know. And now that I'm getting involved in trying to be professional, I always think, like, how would that affect me as far as getting a job, you know. When people see the name Naeem Muhammad, it might be a red flag sometimes, and it's definitely a red flag at the airport. So that definitely has affected me somewhat. And but I just feel like I just keep doing to get through, I just keep doing what I do. I break barriers, conversations like these, which I think is great. Yeah.
For me, like I said before, I identify as a black man, and with that, I feel like I'm constantly trying to prove wrong, the stereotype that I don't agree with. I'm constantly trying to prove that. I'm constantly trying to prove that I'm not like a certain people, even though I don't agree with the stereotype. Instead of trying to represent myself and show them the character that I have and the potential, I'm constantly trying to prove wrong. And then from there, prove other things as far as what I can achieve with my potential. So that has played a part. One more time, ask that question.
What's your favorite color? So how have other aspects of your identity impacted your race and vice versa?
Oh yeah, just mine. I feel I'm always searching for things that, relate to me. I feel like I don't find that here. As far as my life experiences, the challenges I went through, and what may lay ahead of me. And that's why I like the BSU. I love BSU because it creates that platform where we can have that type of dialogue. I can be in a room with people who can relate, and then I can be in a room with people who don't look like me, but understand and sympathize and are willing to advocate for the cause, whoever that may be. As far as my gender, my race and gender going hand in hand. When I talk to people, I try to approach them in a soft, gentle voice manner because I don't want to intimidate them with my voice and what I look like. So how I approach people is affected by how I identify with who I am. So I always try to be cautious how I come across. I don't want to scare anybody away or fit that stereotype of angry black man. Especially me being tall, people think tall, big people mumble, so I try to articulate myself well, so I think my I do sometimes mumble, so I try to be, I'm good. All right, I'm just bringing you
For me, growing up, thinking about it now, it's just interesting how growing up it seemed that my race actually took a back seat to all the other things about me that make up who I am as a person. It seemed like always growing up the joke was, Tiana's not really black, you're only black on the outside. And people just made it seem like I was a white woman trapped in a black woman's body. But that's definitely not how I feel. So it's just interesting to me how the people around me, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, just always seem to make it a point that we like you and we like who you are aside from your race, which I think is really unfortunate. And it wasn't until getting older that I realized just how terrible and really not okay that is. But yeah, it's also interesting that you talked about hair. About a year and a half ago, I decided to just cut all my hair off. And along with that, a lot of my white friends were like, no, don't do that. it won't look good, like, why would you do that, like, you won't have straight hair anymore, like, whatever will you do? And it still just shocked me that they're like, Tiana, like, you're really black. And I was like, no kidding. So it's now that I'm really really coming to understanding, like I said before, of the ignorance that still surrounds me growing up in the area, because I feel like even though I was aware of it, I was still shielded from a lot of it, which is why I'm also very excited that we now have the Black Student Union, because it's definitely needed, not to educate everyone, including myself.
For me, I won't say that race has affected really any part of my life. I really don't believe in the whole ideology of behind race, that concept. But I will say that it's just crazy because we have all of these categories that we allow people to place us in, and so that's how we kind of live our life, and we kind of identify with things. Being an African American woman on this campus, that's nothing for me. But being a black gay woman on this campus, I feel like this campus is very, very friendly to the GLBT community. However, when I look out, when I look at the people around me, there isn't anybody on this campus that I can identify with. And so that can sometimes be difficult. I'm very fortunate, however, because I have a great family down in Trio. Every aspect of my life they're knowledgeable about, and they offer me support.
All right, well, for me, it's a little, talking about other aspects of my identity always gets complicated because I'm always, my identity is always something that I'm always like questioning and trying to figure out. So it's like, yeah, I know I'm black, and then people ask me, they assume things about like my sexual orientation and gender. I'm gender neutral, but I prefer actually male or female pronouns. Like, it doesn't really matter with me. Either one is fine with me. But I also identify as a pansexual because I did the whole straight, bisexual, gay thing. It just, none of it felt right. And then I just realized, like, I just love people that love me back without it necessarily having to be a woman or a man or anything with a label necessarily. And what's even more interesting is I found it like my sexual identity, like in my gender and religion and things like that, definitely play a part because I grew up with 3 different religions. Like, I was going to a Catholic school, so we went to mass every other Friday, but my dad went to Baptist church and my mom went to non-denominational church, so there was like all this religion. So I don't identify with any religion either. So like, and it's always interesting when all these things play a part, especially with my relationship, because I got married on Friday. And it's always something it seems complicated to other people because my wife is trans and they don't always understand that, and they don't really understand me. So it's like, oh, you're in a straight relationship. I'm like, no, actually I'm not. There's layers to it, and people always try to make it one or the other when sometimes it's it's just like it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like I don't have to be any religion. I don't have to be any gender. So that's something that I'm constantly thinking about, and only because other people are constantly projecting what they want me to be on me. And when I say other people, I'm mainly talking about family. So it's always interesting when I get asked questions about how one plays along with the other and vice versa, because it's very complicated, especially when you don't fit the norm. Like if someone can't, or they look at me and like they assume I'm a lesbian, and then I'm like, no, or it gets. I got mistaken for a football player once. That was fun. So it's always interesting. I always say it's always interesting, and it's for me. It's always hilarious. Always also to watch people's reaction. Like I was at a Starbucks one time. I was like, "Oh, can I help you, sir?" And I started speaking. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "It's fine." She kept apologizing, but she didn't give me a free coffee. So, so yeah, it's always something for me that's always like gender and religion and things like that. It's always for me. It's always evolving and changing. So it's just like it's fluid. It just is. I'm done.
Good. When I look at my dimension of identity, if I have the luxury of pulling out race, everything else is pretty good. Straight man who gets a lot of privileges, so I don't ever forget that. A straight cisgendered man who, at least over the phone, everything, I get to experience what it's like to generally face a world without bias, a world where if I say something, I'm assumed to be competent, safe, intelligent. Because over the phone, you don't see this. So I often joke when a parent calls, and not that we ever have any disgruntled parents, college campus. But I can count on one hand how many times I've had a difficult parent interaction, most times over the phone. And when my colleagues who are women are facing resistance and disrespect, when I get on the phone, everything's great, clouds roll away, sky's blue, and whatever Dr. Seeger says is okay. But when I mix gender and race, I realize that life is a little bit different. And it took me probably about 39 years to realize that most of what has been labeled as success or achievement in my life was often in response to not being assumed to be a stereotype. So working ridiculously hard so no one could say that I was less than, that I was not good enough, or that I fit some stereotype. Now, once you do something for so long, it becomes a habit, and whatever the rationale was that started that habit, the habit's there, I can't stop now. But I'm always conscious, so to make it real for anyone who works here, all of you get Student Affairs Digest, right? So yes, you read it every day, right? You would be shocked the amount of effort I put into that. It was not only because I think the events we do as Student Affairs are outstanding. Plugs. I can do that. But because I know that I'm judged on my work. So every period, every space, every M dash versus N dash is perfected. Because that was my experience, and it's never left me. From preschool at 4 years old, being doubted, being judged for the cursive, the penmanship that was not perfect, and so those are just things that you just do, that I've just done over time, and so gender and race for me are linked in ways that I can't separate except over the phone, or maybe in writing. But in person, they don't separate. And so they're the perfectionism that I have developed that I just can't let go. And I know it has come from wanting to be seen and not judged as being less than. Now, unfortunately, that drive to perfection, probably for those folks who work with me, don't comment because I know where you are. Unfortunately, I passed that on. But I've never had the luxury of being less than good enough, because I've always felt the burden that I'm representing all black men. That I might be the exception, or at least I may be the exception for someone's experience. So they may come to understand a different role. They may understand that, you know what, those judgments that I may have had are not the same, and maybe if I'm different, they will see that we all are not the stereotype that they may be assuming. And so, yeah, it took me a long time to come to the conclusion to that. I don't have the luxury of just separating out race and gender, and it also means being conscious and thoughtful. And I don't have a height going on that Sean has. I certainly am thoughtful about how I come across. And I know being a bald black man holds meaning. Now, there was a time where being bald was just being practical. As a master's student, getting a master's degree in rural South Central Pennsylvania, there were no barbers who cut my hair. And there's a point where cutting your own hair with clippers gets too difficult. And so it's just a practical thing. And then after that, nature took care of it. Nature felt that a lot. And I do look good with it, so I don't have a problem. It's just being real. I look really good with it, so I'm not ashamed of it. But I'm conscious of what my presence means. I'm conscious of what it means in the space I occupy. And but I'm also conscious, fortunately, I'm conscious of what that means in terms of privilege that still comes with being a cisgender man, a cisgender straight man, in a society that privileges men, particularly straight men, and that our voice still carries and still matters. So I balance the both and. I balance both strong, dominant identities that make the world much smoother for me, and at the same time, subordinate identity that makes the world very tough for me at the same time.
Thank you. I'm going to do a quick vocabulary lesson here. Tom used the word cisgender, and I think many people are familiar with the term transgender. But cisgender is defined as those who their biological sex, man, woman, corresponds with the socially constructed ideas of what it means to be male, female, masculine, feminine, and they match up. So man, male, masculine, that's cisgender. Transgender, Latin people, trans, meaning across, and so then your biological sex does not match up with how your gender identity or gender expression, how you feel about that. So just passing that on. I'm aware of the time, and the last two questions I'm going to combine so that you can respond to both of those when you want. And the two questions are, what do you want the people in the majority here to know about your experiences as a person of color, and what would you recommend as an improvement to improve Shepherd University around racial issues?
I would like people to know that my experiences overall have been pretty good, actually, but I'm at the same time very conscious of those whose experience have not been as good. I'm grateful that I have been so fortunate enough to break the barriers I have and to be in the situations that I have. And I also want people just to take the time to just educate themselves, stuff like this, as well as other things on campus, and just not being so quick to judge. That can happen through conversation, your own personal research. I think when people start doing things like that, even if we don't agree, just taking the time to sit down. Like one of my best friends, we we do not agree on anything politically at all. But he is my best friend on this campus, hands down probably. And he's my brother. He has my, he might have my back, he has my back. I always talk to my mom about how, like, she always says, you know, that's good that you can have somebody like that in your life. Y'all don't have to agree on everything, but the fact that y'all are close enough and mature enough to just sit down and talk about it, that just brings y'all one step closer to understanding each other. And as far as an improvement for Shepherd, you know, I love Shepherd. Anybody that's close to me will let you know. I haven't been home since freshman year. I stay here every summer. You know, my mom called me today, can you come home? I'm like, oh no, I'm not coming home. I just don't. I don't go home. I love it here. And even though it is real different, it's just something about this town and the people here, it just makes me feel real comfortable. And this is definitely a special place. But an improvement, I would say, you know, more, I would like to see when I come back for the team reunion or to the homecoming football game down the road, I would like to see more Dr. Seegers around, and more Dr. Howard Bostick's, even everybody on this panel. You know, I think there's a lot of those in this world. It's just about taking the time to reach those people and have them here. But overall, you know, I think this is a great university. Stuff like this is good initiatives for us, and I love Shepherd.
What do I want the majority to know about my experience that is completely different from yours? Whether the actual circumstances exist or it's just perceived in my mind based off how I've been conditioned by society. But all around my experience is different, and being open-minded and creating an atmosphere, a safe haven for that dialogue, for that understanding would be much appreciated. An improvement here at Shepherd, I would have to agree with Naeem completely. Took the words right out of my mouth, literally. But and it's more inclusiveness, true diversity, not just having quotas, but really representing the minority here and creating that platform for them. And I feel like the issue with the building blocks to that. It's okay to think that's fine, right? But
Basically, what it comes down to for me is I want people to know that my experiences and our experiences, they are real and they are valid, regardless if they're different from yours. If you haven't seen it, you haven't heard it, it exists. Our experiences are very real and they are valid. And improve.
I totally agree with you. I think it is all about education. I think that, and I'll be here 6 years in April 1st, April Fool's Day. And I think that we've taken a lot of great steps in the right direction. BSU, I was really, really proud to see that the students took that initiative to bring this organization about. At good old Macalester College in Minnesota, we had a Black Student Union. So, the recruitment of our educators and the people who service our students, I think that's crucial as well. I think that we just have to keep working as much as possible to make our campus more inclusive, to make our community more inclusive. And as long as we do that, I don't think this place will ever fail.
All right. What I would like the people to know about my experience as a person of color. I really do like fried chicken and watermelon. But that's me. But also, that I just want people to know that don't be afraid to ask questions. I really love talking about my experiences and things like that, especially. I mean, I had like a 2.5 conversation a couple of years ago with one of my friends about, because I had my hair locked at the time, about why my hair was different from hers. And I have conversations like that all the time around the office, like about hair. I love talking about hair. I love talking about my hair. And really, it's just, I mean, in my experience, I'm still experiencing my experience. So it's something new is added to it every day. As far as what we can do at Shepherd to strengthen our community, I agree with what they said, but I think education is only part of it. I think we need to have more experiential learning, and and be more proactive instead of reactive. I was a little disappointed when the Baltimore riots happened and really didn't have a place to come just to talk. Really need to have more things like that before something happens, because when Baltimore riots happened, like, the tension was thick. Like, the littlest thing could have just, we could have been, like, so many people who go to the school are from Baltimore. Like, that could have been here. Like, it was so close. And we were almost at that point. Even with listening to conversations that people were having at that time. I think that as a community, like, we cannot wait for something to happen to have these conversations. These conversations, it can't stop here. Like, we have to continue to have these conversations. Even if it's something that happens like once a month that's open to the campus community and the surrounding community, it's something that needs to happen, and it has to continue to happen.
Can I add on real quick, not to interrupt that? But I agree completely, because I felt that when the Orlando situation happened, there was emails sent out for people who needed counseling and need to be consulted. But when we're seeing an innocent black man shot on camera, and on CNN and Fox News, and young black men laid in the street shot dead every day on the news channels, that has a psychological effect on somebody who looks like me. And for the university I go to, not to create resources for me to come and, or at least initiate and reach out to me and let me know that you're here for me and there's the open door if you want to come and talk about what is going on. I felt a type of way about that, and so like she said, it needs to be those type of platforms really do need to be established beforehand and afterwards. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
It's all good. We can't lose sight of the pervasiveness of race in our experiences, nor can we forget the pervasiveness of other dimensions of identity in our lived experiences. And from our place of power, we can take action. So I'll challenge, at least this is about race, so at least that's the title, topic. So from that point of view, I would say, use your power as a white person to bring up race. Don't wait to a person of color to bring it up. Just like I would say, just someone to straight people, don't wait don't wait for someone else to bring up topics around sexual orientation. From your place of power, you have a voice. And no matter what your title is, or your position is, no matter who you are, you have power from that place. And I think we lose sight of that. Also, I think we lose sight of the fact that we need to have this kind of conversation, independent of our expertise and our own particular disciplines and functional areas. This is not the kind of competence you can gain once, right? You don't go to the training once and you're get done. In fact, for those of us that have purchase we gotta do a training every 2 years anyway, right? And I feel like, you know, I went through it once and I'm still good, but yet I have to do that every 2 years. I have to go do driver training every time we decide to change how that process works. I've done it probably a half dozen times now in 14 years. So we can do that kind of training all the time. We can also engage in learning about difference. And not just difference from the point of view of food, fun, facts, and festival. We learn about difference because in reality we live in a country, we live in a world where difference makes a difference. And to say that difference doesn't make a difference, we are lying to ourselves. And to spend time in dialogue about how these differences make a difference and how we will make a difference around these differences, that is time well spent. And I think as an institution, we really need to take advantage of that. Sometimes we say, well, we're just too busy. Well, who's not busy, right? I haven't been bored since like 1993. The last time I've been bored, the last time I wasn't busy was 1993. Remember the day. And then I started thinking about applying to grad school, and then I've been busy ever since. But we have to make time for it. And I think as an institution, we are certainly have made strides. I'm certainly happier to be here than many other places, but we still need to spend time on these topics to increase our competence. And in spaces where we have discretionary power, we need to speak out. Who is being affirmed, who's not being affirmed? Who's showing up, who's not showing up? Is what we are doing inclusive or exclusive? And sometimes exclusive by design, even if we don't intend it to be. And realizing that that is what makes a difference. And I agree, I think we failed in not providing a voice and a space and all the tragedies that have happened. And I love not to be the one who has to make the space and do it. I don't want to carry that burden, but I think we all need to take that on. So that's, to answer the question, that is how, one way I think we can strengthen our community.
So I recognize that we are at past 9 o'clock, and so we're going to wrap up. One of the things that I do when I work with training sessions, I often have individuals who've been participating in a variety of ways. So when you walk out, you have the opportunity to do nothing else. You can say, this was a great program, I learned a lot from these panelists, I'll go to the next program. And that's your choice. One of the things that I do when I do trainings is I often have individuals write down 3 things, 3 goals, personal goals, that they want to achieve over, let's say, the next semester, the next 6 months. I have them seal it in an envelope and put their name on it. I never read it. But in about 3 months, I send them back and say, where are you? We can't do this in this program, but I encourage you to think about what are your goals around race? How are you going to impact Shepherd community and the greater Shepherdstown area so that we continue to hear about the positive experiences that these voices have shared, but also recognize that that's not all the voices that we've heard over our time here. So I encourage you to think about that as you leave and what role you're going to play. But I want to make sure that as we leave, we thank the panelists here for sharing their stories to, in many cases, a bunch of strangers. And really, I know I was more informed about the experiences of these 6 individuals, and I hope you were as well. So thank you very much. I think they will be around for autographs at the end. So.